Hi, my name is Jaime Vazquez. I'm here with Maria Guadalupe Gamboa, and I am going to interview her on her education and on people of color.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so my first question is when and where were you born, and how did your family get to Texas?
So that's a good question. I was born in 1978, March 11th, 1978, in Rosenberg, Texas, which is very close to Houston, Texas. My parents were born and raised in Villahermosa, Tamaulipas, Mexico. They were immigrants. They came to the United States to look for a better life, and that was when my older siblings were very young. So that was in 1974, I believe. I'm a Mexican American who's lived in Houston her entire life.
So, what do you remember about your childhood?
Well, I grew up in the Houston east side of town, so we were basically in an area where 99.9% of students and families were Mexican American. So I didn't necessarily have much exposure to people of different backgrounds, cultures, or different color. I was a co-op student in high school when I started working in downtown, and that was the huge impact on me, where I was exposed to other cultures, other people. But when growing up, I grew up with 5 siblings in our house. I was one of the youngest. My older sibling and brother were a huge influence on me. We also attended church every Wednesday night, Friday night, Sunday morning, and Sunday night. So as a child, we learned a lot about God, about things that we shouldn't be doing, things that we should do. And aside from learning about God, I believe that it helped us to master the Spanish language, as our church service was in Spanish. That kept us out of the streets too, and in a sense, educated.
So, once you entered the workforce, what kind of interactions did you have with people not of your racial background?
So when I entered the workforce, So I entered the workforce at 16 years of age. My first job was at Luby's cafeteria. My manager was white, but most of the staff was African American and Hispanic. I learned about their culture through conversations and occasional laughs, but my biggest impact was when I started to work at downtown at 17 years of age. I worked with the accounting department of a huge firm, and it was very diverse. We had Asians, Arabs, African American, Caucasian, and Hispanics like myself in the company. It was an amazing experience because I learned about their customs, culture, and their education. And it was inspiring to me because they were in the positions, whether they were managerial positions, supervisory positions, clerk positions, accounting positions, etc. It was all through their education. It didn't matter whether they were white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, Arab. It was because of their education and their work experience and their work ethic that they were in those positions.
What moment in American history most sticks out to you?
I'm not really into politics, but the moment that Obama was elected as president in 2008 was an energizing moment and year for me. It made us believe that this country could elect a candidate based on qualities and not on color. I voted for Obama then, and I hope to be voting for the first female president of the United States of America next year.
So, how did you respond to Obama being elected, and how did you see others around you respond?
It's kind of interesting because I grew up not really knowing discrimination. But my father, who was an immigrant and worked as a sheetrock hanger most of his life, did see a lot of discrimination in his environment. I was excited and happy that Obama had been elected. It was a defining moment in U.S. history, and I was happy that my children were seeing that. On the other hand, my father truly believed that if Obama was elected president, what occurred many years before would happen again. Basically, he thought that Obama would be assassinated. So if you think back to Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King, they were assassinated because they had some beliefs that were different from others. They disagreed with discrimination in some sense. So my father, who suffered because of it, had a whole different perspective than I did. Basically, I think that the time frame and Where you were born determines your ideals and thoughts.
The University of Houston, what?
3.
So at the University of Houston, what did you major in?
At University of Houston, I majored within the College of Education, and it was Human Development and Family Studies. So I had a Bachelor of Science with a minor in Education. My goal with the Human Development and Family Studies major was to go into human resources. That was my end goal. That's what I wanted to do in life. But when I was working with Halliburton, since I was 18 years of age for a period of 12 years, I was very fortunate because I moved up within the organization. And that was through hard work and by finishing my bachelor's degree. So although I didn't go into human resources, I decided to stick with project management, security management, and operations management. So I had lots of different positions within the organization for many years. Because I was able to do a lot of those things, I had the gift of meeting employees and training them. So although I didn't necessarily go into education or HR, I did train employees worldwide. So what I would do is I would travel to countries like Algeria in Africa, Dubai, Singapore, Scotland, Mexico, Panama, Canada, Malaysia, and many, many cities within the United States. And I would train them on new systems that we would deploy, whether they were security management systems, project management systems, real estate, acquisition, property management systems, operation systems. I would train them as we deployed them, and I would manage the projects as we were going through and doing them. So what was very beneficial in that sense is that I met people from all different types of cultures and countries, and it allowed me to learn how to manage employees from different backgrounds and work with coworkers, whether they were, again, Asian, Arab, African American, Mexican, etc. So there was lots of positives to actually finishing my education at U of H and majoring in what I decided at that time.
Who would you identify as a role model?
I have lots of role models, but I'll mention, I think, a few. My father was very hardworking. He still is a very hardworking man, and he's the one that pushed us to always do our best. My mother is full of energy, so she's the one that would always come up with exciting things. She would tell us to do our best as well, but it was also have some fun in life. Do good, but have some fun in life. My older sister and my older brother played a very important role when I was younger in high school and in college. My oldest sister was the first to graduate in my family, and that was huge for us because we were able to see that it was possible. Normally when you don't have anyone who has gone through that, they may not tell you, yes, you can finish college and you can go on and do lots of good things in life. My brother, on the other hand, would give me money for every A that I would receive. So in high school, needless to say, I would usually get straight A's, and sometimes he may have felt broke, and other times I may have felt rich. But he's the reason that I received straight A's most of the time throughout high school and graduated summa cum laude and went on to college by receiving lots of scholarships, because otherwise my parents would have not been able to pay for college for me. So I did complete my education at U of H because of each of those role models that I had in my life. But lastly, I want to talk about someone who was a role model to me throughout my Halliburton career, 12 years working at Halliburton. His name was John Scheibelhut. He was my manager for several years. My cubicle was right outside of his office, but his managerial skills were impressive. He led our department, and as I think back, I truly believe that every one of his employees put in 110% because of him. He was positive, flexible, provided very good feedback, and most importantly, he was humble. So regardless of his very high position that he had in the organization, he could talk to each one of us and inspire us to do our best. He was always laughing. He was a very hard worker, but he was very positive. And lastly, I think the biggest impact there was that he inspired all of us in the department to do our best.
So how did your role models prepare you for who you are now?
Well, my brother and sister prepared me to finish what I started, because without their push, I don't believe I would have finished college. Shibo Hutt, my boss, prepared me for future managerial positions. So after I left him and moved on to other positions within Halliburton, I fortunately received very good positions. They were managerial positions or supervisory positions. So I had many employees under my organization, my department. So I believe that I attempted to be positive, flexible, and provided very good feedback to my employees when it was needed. And I think it was taken very well by my employees. I regularly thought back and asked myself, what would Shibo Hutt do? And that helped me a lot. So when it was time to either make decisions or do a specific project and decide what employees were going to do to help us with those projects, I believe I was confident, and I think it was because of him.
What advice would you give to young people today?
Well, the first advice that I would give to young people today is obviously to finish your education. Whether that means having an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's, a PhD, whatever it is, finish what you started.